How to source for Japanese Pokemon cards, how to find a supplier from Japan, and the reason why people like me, streamers, and people who have Pokemon businesses will probably not tell you who their supplier from Japan is, and it's probably not what you think. So first, just to get the basics out of the way, how do you source for Japanese Pokemon cards? You can get them almost anywhere. You can get them on streams. eBay is a huge market for Japanese Pokemon cards. You could also find like local game stores will probably have Japanese Pokemon cards as well. You can find them on different websites. They're all over the place. So what I think you're probably more so interested in hearing and getting some tips from is how to find a Japanese supplier who will send you those Pokemon cards at a pretty low rate. First, let me just say how 99% of streamers are doing this, and then I'll try to get into the nitty gritty as far as like tips and advice that you should probably follow. So what most streamers, what most businesses are doing is they're finding an Instagram account that sells Japanese Pokemon cards, and they're specifically trying to find an Instagram account ran by somebody or by a business in Japan. Once you have found an account, then you reach out to them. More than likely, they're going to send you some kind of list that has their inventory and the rate at which they are selling it, and it's always going to be in yen. And the way that you actually pay for these goods is through using a service like Wise, where you are literally wiring somebody in Japan money. It really is that simple, but there are some steps here and some advice that I would give you before you go and try to find somebody to buy Japanese Pokemon cards from. Number one, you need to understand that it is a risk, and that the more you are willing to risk, the better rate you're going to get those Pokemon cards for. So when you use a platform like Wise and you are sending somebody that you found on Instagram a bunch of money, there is no guarantee that you are actually going to receive the product or that you're going to receive genuine, untampered with product. It is a absolute risk. So you really got to ask yourself if you're willing to take that risk. And you also got to ask yourself, how much are you willing to risk? Because if you are going to buy $5,000 worth of booster boxes from Japan, it's going to be at a lower rate than if you're just buying 2 booster boxes. My second tip, and something that I did personally, was that I refused to buy from anybody off of Instagram until I was able to check at least 3 references. There are a ton of scammers out there, so you guys got to be very, very careful. What I would do is I would just message the people on Instagram. I would say, hey, I'm interested in working with you, but can you please provide me at least 3 references of people who have purchased from you who live in the United States? If they wouldn't supply me those references, then I wouldn't purchase from them whatsoever. For the accounts that did give me those references, when I would go and check out those profiles, sometimes you would notice that something was up with it. Maybe they only had like 15 followers, maybe it was private. And when I would try to message those references, they wouldn't get back to me. For me personally, that is a red flag, and I would not purchase from that account. All in all, it took me about a week and a half to find an Instagram account that had really solid references. One of them, they got back to me. They gave me 3 references. I reached out to those people. Some of them got back to me earlier than later, and they all seemed like legitimate, real accounts of people actually living in the United States who have purchased from this Japanese Instagram account. Bonus tip here, I'm not sure if I just got really lucky, but I did ask one of those references if they would actually do a quick FaceTime with me through Instagram so that I can make sure that I was actually talking to somebody from the US. Because you never really know when you're chatting with somebody on Instagram. For all I know, it's somebody else in Japan who works for that Instagram account, and who knows who I'm talking to. So somebody was super kind. They allowed me to FaceTime with them, and they even like showed me the product that came from this Japanese Instagram account selling Pokemon cards. And my third tip is that even if you have checked all of those references, for your first purchase, make it something that is doable for you, whether that's $50 or whether that's $1,000. But if you're planning on going in on this big time, if you're planning on sending $6,000 a month to Japan every single month, wiring it to them, such as myself, start with a smaller purchase first. Get the product in, test it out yourself before you ever think of selling it to anybody else, and basically get a smaller order to make sure it's legit. From there, you can establish and strengthen the relationship that you have with that supplier in Japan. And if you continue to order more from them, and especially if you continue to increase the volume at which you are ordering from them, then you're going to get more and better deals down the road. So why do streamers like me, why do different businesses, why do different game stores refuse to tell you who they purchase from in Japan? You might think that it's because they just don't want competition, because if you start buying from that same supplier, well, now maybe it means less for them, or there's competitive prices there and maybe the rate is going to go up for them. But really, that's not what it comes down to, in my opinion, or at the very least, I can speak for myself. That is not the reason why I wouldn't tell you who I purchase from in Japan. The reason why I don't tell who I purchase from is because at the end of the day, my goal is to build up a community and build a trust with the people who are purchasing from me. Now imagine that I give you the account that I've been buying Japanese Pokemon cards from, and you end up going through them. You wire them $600 and you never end up receiving your product. Or you receive the product, but it's tampered with and it's not genuine product, or they took everything out of it and it's basically a scam. Well, now I'm in the middle of that and I feel kind of responsible that I'm the one who told you, hey, this account is legit. You should go and get from them. I would feel absolutely terrible. And the reality is that even if you have trust with a certain account, it doesn't mean that they're always going to come through. I have had stories from multiple streamers. I've heard stories from people at my local game stores of like, yeah, my first order was great. It was all genuine product. Then I sent them $5,000 and I got nothing back. Never heard from them. All of a sudden, the account closed. So because of the fact that it is always a risk and that I cannot guarantee that you are not going to get scammed, I don't want to be a part of that equation, right? But I've given you the tips today as far as like how to find one on your own, and as well as like how to go about it as safe as possible. But do understand, again, that it's always a risk. So be really careful, guys. If you're just somebody collecting Pokemon cards, I would definitely just stick with people like myself doing streams, finding a website like pokene.com. You could always purchase from there, and it's always, you can trust that he's always going to have a legitimate product. But yeah, if you like to go big and you want a ton of boxes for a pretty good rate, then you might want to try and find one of these Instagram accounts. And definitely, if you're planning on opening up your own store, you're streaming or something like that, to make it reasonable for yourself, you probably would have to go this route of risking quite a lot of money to be able to get some genuine Japanese Pokemon cards for a rate that you can then turn around and not be $6,000 in debt. Just to wrap up here and for a little bit of self-promo, I am going to be getting Tyrassel Festival. Right now, I only have 10 boxes coming in. That's all that the supplier was able to allocate to me, but I am probably going to be putting up pre-sales on my website. If I do, I'll link it down in the description below. Just know that you probably wouldn't be receiving that product until about a week and a half after release, because it's supposed to get shipped to me on the 6th. I'll make sure to include it in the description. And yeah, guys, hopefully this helped you out. Stay safe with your collecting and always take care of yourself. I'll see you guys on the next one.